There are many of us who get really hard on ourselves where we're not able to keep up with a new habit we set for ourselves, or that we cannot stay on track with a goal that we set for ourselves. And it doesn't mean that you're weak. It doesn't mean that you lack motivation, and it doesn't mean that you're broken. It's quite the opposite. And it goes so much deeper than that. It has nothing to do with discipline. And this is what I'm going to talk about today. When you're not able to stay on track, or if you revert back to old habits, it's not a discipline issue. And this is where a lot of mindset and life coaches make a mistake. It goes so much deeper than that. And if you miss it, it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to always go back to your old habits. So, in this episode, I'm going to cover why we default when we find ourselves in unfamiliar territory and how emotional safety plays a role in our discipline, in our boundaries, and in the way that we show up in our lives, and also what safety looks like for adults, not just for children, but for adults. And at the end of this episode, you want to stick around because I'm going to show you how you can work on that for yourself, how you can find that so-called discipline that you need to get to where you want to go, and how you can show your kids what to do so that they don't fall back into our old patterns. So this is what we're going to talk about today. For those who don't know me, my name is Danielle C. Baker. I am a registered early childhood educator with over 20 years of experience. I'm also the founder and CVO of Being Connected. I work with parents, teachers, and educators on the reality of what parenting is today. But don't get it wrong. When you work with me, we're working for the child's needs. So we're going to need to put our ego and pride aside and let's get to it. Hello, 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 and welcome to the Talk to Danielle podcast. I am your host, Danielle C. Baker. And before we get started, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to whichever channel you're listening and watching from. And of course, this is season 4, so I do invite you to have a look at the 3 previous seasons. You may find some topics there that may resonate with your reality today, and these episodes are timeless. So it's worth having a look to see if there's anything there that can help you. And we're going to jump right in today with this episode, which I find really interesting. I've worked with most of my clients now. I'm working with this, and this will be part of this year for season 4. I'm going into sort of a self-leadership series. This is something that I work whether with children, with youth, young adults, older adults, and even senior citizens. We work on self-leadership because it's so important. If we cannot lead ourselves, we cannot lead others. And as a parent, you are a leader. You're leading your children into becoming the great adults that they're going to be. So it is important for us to be comfortable with who we are and to know what our triggers are and to be able to stay in control and so that we're not as reactive. So our children will trigger the heck out of us, and we need to be prepared for that. So this is what I'm going to do for every first Thursday every month. I will have a little tidbit on how we can work on ourselves, and then we can pass that on to our children so we can break patterns, break the cycles, and just get our children to be the best that they can be. So we're going to jump right in with this discipline issue that, and of course, this goes along with the new year. Many of us now, this episode is recorded for February. So many of us may have already failed at our New Year's resolution. And if that's the case, I do invite you to go back to the first episodes of this season. Do touch on why we start the new year off so tired and why you don't need to be a new you for the new year. That will help you a lot to kind of navigate everything that we're going to go through this year. But today, for the first part of this episode, I'm going to talk about why we default when we feel that we're not in a comfortable state or we're not in familiar territory. So when I say that the problem is not discipline, we're actually dealing with a safety issue. It's not that you're not motivated. It's not that you're not strong enough. It's not that you're lazy. It's just that for some reason, whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, your nervous system is interpreting it as unsafe because it's unfamiliar. Our subconscious mind is much stronger than our common sense. And so it will always try to go back to what is familiar. That's the easiest thing to go to, even if that familiar is not actually safe. Well, I'm going to touch on that a little bit more later on. But the reason our subconscious mind works, what keeps us going and evolving as a species, is it has two jobs. The subconscious mind is there to keep us alive and to avoid us going through pain. Those are the only two functions. So when we do go through some periods of pain, whether it is emotional or physical, or if we feel threatened, this is our caveman brain, it kicks in automatically. We do not have time to think. We just react. That's the whole point. And and then it registers as this is how it's going to keep us safe from now on. So no matter what it is, even if it was not the best reaction at the time, it was. And so it will always go back to that because that's what it knows. It knows you survived it, even if it wasn't handled in the best way. You survived it. So it worked. So it'll keep going. It might not be the best for you now, but it was then. So the reason why we revert back is that our nervous system is designed for protection, not for perfection or not for productivity. So when you are in survival mode, or if you feel threatened in any kind of way, your body, in terms of productivity, problem solving, critical thinking, shuts down. We don't have time for that. We need to survive right now. We need to make sure we're not in pain, and so it shuts down. Our nervous system is there to protect us, not to keep us protective. So when the subconscious mind feels like you may be in danger because this is new territory. You're out of your comfort zone, so it'll automatically kind of signal to say, oh, there could be danger here. In order to protect us, the subconscious mind brings us back to from what's familiar, even if that familiar is not good for us. So that's why we revert back to old habits. That's why we revert back to old patterns. That's why we become tired or we start procrastinating. Those are the kind of signs that your subconscious mind is reverting back to survival mode. So you really need to look at and be mindful of it, be aware of it. By being aware of it, we're also able to help our children pinpoint these triggers so that they don't pick that up from us and continue the cycle, or continue the pattern. This is where we stop generational cycle. So knowing all of this about how our subconscious mind works and how our nervous system works, we are now able to know that when we feel unsafe or triggered, we shift to control. We want to take control over whatever the situation is. And just a side note that procrastination is control because now we are controlling the fact that we're not doing anything anymore. Anxiety is also a form of control. When you feel out of control, your nervous system is going to register that when you start feeling this anxiety, you're actually controlling the narrative, even if it's contradicting. It makes no sense. So that's the whole point. The subconscious mind is not made up to make sense. It is just made up to keep you alive and to keep you away from pain. So control is one of the things we revert to. Uh, Without reason. We're going to be reactive as opposed to responding. Perfectionism, people pleasing, avoidance, all of those things, task paralysis, these are all signs that you are feeling unsafe at the moment, or if you're feeling triggered, these will come up. So it's very important to notice these things. It is also very important to remember that these are not flaws. These are just protective strategies. They're there to protect you. So this is what I mean when I say that if you're not being productive, you're not feeling disciplined or motivated, you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. This is just your body's way of telling you that something doesn't feel right. And it's important not to ignore that so it doesn't escalate even further. And that's the side note I'm going to put for parenting because I do tie in all the thing about self-discipline. I tie it into our parenting after is that this is why adults escalate when children dysregulate. So when our kids are dysregulated or acting up or having a meltdown, we tend to escalate. And I want to invite you when I talk about breaking generational cycles, think about when your parents were triggered by your behavior, how quickly they would escalate, how quickly they would threaten you with violence, or they would just say this, I'm the adult, you must listen to me. If you were not listening or questioning, they would say it was a sign of disrespect. They were in reactive mode. Now, as children, we think that we really did something wrong. We don't see it that our parents are dysregulated, that they are reacting to a situation where now they feel unsafe. They are having their own tantrum, essentially. But once we start looking back at how the adults who raised us reacted to our dysregulation, it will give you a really good idea of what you were working with as a child, what was being modeled to you as a child. As if the adults were acting up, then that's all you learn to do. So remember that as well. That's what you're passing on to your children. We need to address it right away. The other thing I want to mention here too is that with children, when they're very young, they don't know how to process their emotions yet. They haven't learned that. We are the ones who are supposed to teach them that. And the only way we can teach it to them is by modeling it. They're watching us. We can't just tell them what to do. They don't understand it yet. They don't have the words for it. So they don't understand the words that we're giving them. So they borrow from us our nervous system. When they feel regulated, they feed off, they kind of check on us to see what our reaction is, and then they will follow suit. And this is why when a child is playing at the park and falls, oftentimes they will have a look at us and see how we react before they start crying. So they really are feeding off of our reactions. And so they're borrowing off of our nervous system. It is so important for us to stay in control, to know what triggers us and what to do to make ourselves feel safe so that we could do the same for our children as well. So, for this first part of the episode, when I'm saying why we're defaulting back to old habits when we don't feel safe or when we feel triggered or when we feel like we're in a very uncomfortable zone, we just have to remember that our nervous system will choose safety over growth. So when you're working on your personal growth, personal development, or even professional development, if you're not feeling safe, I should rephrase that and say if your nervous system doesn't feel safe, you will not be able to grow. You're not going to see the results that you want to see because you need to address that issue first so that your nervous system feels safe so that it can open up to new ideas, new concepts, and new habits. So this is where life coaches and mindset coaches make mistakes. Many of them come in like a drill sergeant, and they're just pushing you and pushing you and pushing you even more. So if you're coming from a space of not feeling safe already with this new growth or this new mindset that you're developing, and they're coming in and just adding fuel to the fire, you're wasting each other's time. And I've seen this over and over again, both personally and then professionally. Look, as a third party watching somebody, when you have these mindset coaches that are just like, rah, 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 you need to be motivated, stop being lazy, blah, 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 you're shutting down if they're not taking the time to understand why you're resisting or why you're hesitating or any other reason why you're not necessarily achieving the goals that they're expecting you to achieve, they need to actually approach it to say, okay, what is it that you need right now for you to feel safe in this new unknown territory and how they can support you with that. So if you are feeling more pressure and you're feeling like you're shutting down from a coach's approach, you need to just shut it down, dump them because they're not being safe. Now, it's different if they did find the tools, if they did find the reasons why you're hesitant or you're not achieving the goals that you want to achieve, and then they give you a little bit more motivation. That's different. That's constructive. But if they're just out to say, you're not paying me for me to be nice to you, those are usually the red flags that you're looking for. So that for the second part of this episode, I'm going to talk to you about how emotional safety shapes our habits, our boundaries, and our motivation or our discipline, right? So, as I mentioned earlier, with the nervous system and the unconscious mind, is the reason why habits don't stick when you feel pressured, is because now you're reverting back to your caveman brain. Where you feel in danger, even if you're actually not in danger, this extra pressure, this coming out of your comfort zone will feel like danger to your subconscious mind. And so that part of the brain will send signals to your nervous system to say, okay, we need to go into reactive mode right now. And your habits are just not going to stick because you're going to feel that pressure. The other thing that happens too when your body is bracing, so your subconscious mind detected a danger somehow for some unknown reason, and now your body is bracing for impact, is bracing for an attack, is bracing for pain. And so your motivation is going to drop. Everything else drops. Like I said earlier, the nervous system is there to protect, not to be productive. And so if your body feels like it's bracing for an attack or for bracing for impact, then you're looking at the motivation dropping. This is why after a week or two of committing and sticking to the program, you start dropping down because now your body is looking and your brain is looking for something that is familiar. And if it's not getting it, it's going to revert back to your old habits. So it's important to know that when your body feels like it's in danger, even if you're not conscious of it, uh, there will be no motivation and your discipline is just not going to be existent at all at that point. The other thing too is your boundaries are going to feel threatened when your motivation is low or when you feel unsafe. So this is where the snowball effect happens. When you're not feeling safe, your boundaries feel threatened. And when your boundaries feel threatened, you feel like you're even more in danger and you get reactive. This is where we get triggered when our values feel threatened, when our boundaries feel like when somebody crosses the line, basically, then you're going to shut down even more. You're not going to be able to grow. You're not going to be able to reason on the situation. You're just focused on the issue, the problem, and what is triggering you. And now it just gets out of hand. So you will completely shut down. You will overreact. You will quit. All of these things happen because you're not feeling safe, both on an emotional level, a psychological level, which brings it down to a physical level. And then it just, everything shuts down. So, in order to get everything to work in your favor, when you want to develop a new habit, when you want to establish a better discipline, if I could say it that way, there is kind of a three-part way where in order for you to feel safe, in order for your subconscious mind to feel safe, you need to be in an environment or in a situation where you have the capacity to be able to find your safe space. And so when I say capacity, I just mean that you are given an opportunity or you're given a sense that you can take the time to process what's going on and figure out what's going on inside of you where you would feel unsafe and then readjust. So you have to be that you have to have that capacity, but you also have to have the consistency. So if you're in an environment where you don't always feel safe and all of a sudden it does, you're working towards finding that safe space, but it's not consistent. The next day you don't know, or later on in the day you don't know if it's going to be safe again. You're going back to ground zero and you have to start all over again. So you need to, in order to have that safety, you need to find a way to have the capacity to be able to. So you can't be on your caveman brain mode, and it also has to be consistent. So if you're working on a relationship, let's say, and it's not the best relationship, and then your partner starts to show signs that they want to change the environment they created for you, so they're giving you the capacity to feel safe, but it's not consistent, you're going to revert back to the times where you were never you've never really felt safe with your partner. And so you're starting back from zero again. You don't have the trust to uh, to feel safe. And that's what that consistency is it builds the trust. It trains your brain to remember that, oh yeah, we are not in danger here. So it's okay to keep going and to discover this new pattern or discover this new habit. So that's very important to remember. Now, when I relate back to parenting, because like I said, we're learning on ourselves and then we have to teach our children to break those patterns. It is important to remember that children comply when they are safe, not when they're scared. So when we're taking a parenting approach where we are blackmailing our children, we are threatening our children, even if we're not going to follow through. If they feel scared, they're not going to be able to comply because again, their brain shut down and now they just need to stay safe and stay alive. So they're not going to be able to pick up on your message. They're not going to be able to receive your message, and they won't even know what they've done wrong. They just know that you're angry, you're upset, you're triggered, and they did something wrong, but they were not going to be able to process the whole reasoning. So just remember this, and it's also important in classroom. Children do not comply if they don't feel safe. So if they feel threatened at school, both emotionally, psychologically, and physically, they're not going to be able to listen to you. And this is why they have maybe uh, unsafe behaviors at school or what we would call bad behaviors. There's no such thing as a bad behavior. Bad behaviors are just a defense mechanism. So keep that in mind. If a child is constantly acting up with you, it's because they don't feel safe with you. And this is what I meant when I said ego and pride aside, we need to realize that as adults, and we are the adults, that if the children have bad behaviors with us, that means that they don't feel safe with us. Now, this is different from when kids are acting up. We always talk about the safe adult and children feel safe. When they are just dumping their frustrations and unmasking to you, there's a difference there. You need to know the difference between the two. But just know that your child will not listen to you. If they don't feel safe, they will not listen to instructions. They will not be able to hear your instructions if they don't feel safe. And this is the same for adults. So just remember the main message to remember out of all of this in this part is that regulation comes before responsibility, both for children and for adult. So you need to be regulated. You need to be calm. You need to be in control of your emotions before you can take on your responsibilities. So keep that in mind for children. If they don't feel safe, if they're dysregulated, they're not going to understand what is expected of them, and they're not going to be able to follow through. And it's not their fault. So just remember that. For the third part of this episode, I'm going to talk about what safety looks like in adults, not just children, but for adults. So safety in adults, it's actually quite misunderstood. It's not about comfort or avoidance or letting things slide. That's not safety at all. Safety for adults looks like predictability. It looks like emotional permission. So you're allowed to express your emotions, even if you feel like they don't make any sense or if the other person feels like it doesn't make any sense. You need to feel safe to express your emotions, no matter whether they're good or bad. So that's what safety would look like in an adult. Another thing, too, is that you can set boundaries without fear, right? That is healthy and that is safe. So notice now when I'm talking about predictability, emotional permission, and boundaries without fear, those are the things that are lacking when you are in a toxic or abusive relationship. So no matter if it's a child and parent relationship, if it's a workplace relationship, if it's a personal or love relationship, those are the first things to notice when you are involved in a toxic relationship. So keep that in mind. That is how we condition, or how people are conditioned at a young age, is by removing the predictability, is by removing the permission to express your emotions safely. It is by removing those boundaries. So keep that in mind and make sure you teach your children that, because there are a lot of children who are conditioned to believe that these unsafe environments and unsafe conditions are normal. And then we're making it what is safe for them. So they're always going to revert back to these abusive relationships because that's all they know. And that's what is safe. And trauma happens not necessarily from what is happening to them. Most of the trauma happens once they realize that what happening to them was not right. That's when it hits them the hardest. So keep that in mind. That's what safety really looks like: predictability, uh, emotional permission, and boundaries without fear. Very important to remember that. Now, I could repeat this over and over again for the rest of the episode, but what does that look like exactly? What do those 3 points look like? So I'm going to give you some actual example of what adult safety looks like. One of the first ones, and actually before I start listing them, I want you to kind of, even if you need to close your eyes for this, or if you're driving, please don't do that. But if you're in a safe place, not in a car, not at the mall, if you're home, sitting down and lying down, nice and safe, close your eyes and see whatever I'm going to tell you. See how you feel it in your body. Now, if you are driving, please don't close your eyes, but just still focus on how it's going to feel in your body. We're just focusing on the body right now. When I say the one thing, just see how your body reacts to it. So please, if you are driving, still pay attention to what's going on the road. But the first thing that I want you to notice in your body when I say this is saying no without over explaining. We hear this often, but no is a complete sentence. So think of it of in a situation where you can just say no and not have to justify why you're saying no. And just see if you notice anything, how you reacted in your body to say, what would that look like if I could say no and not have to suffer some consequences for that? Some of you may have some reactions to this. This is something that it took me a really long time, and I would say it's probably just in the last couple of years, maybe, that I feel very comfortable just saying no, and that's it. I don't need to explain myself. I was one with my upbringing of people pleasing and not being able to say no. Or if I had to say no, I felt guilty about it, even if it was for my own safety. So yeah, no is a full sentence. You don't need to add to it. So that's what adult safety looks like. Find yourself in situations and with people that when you say no, that's it. That's it. We respect that, right? Allowing, this is the next one. So notice how your body is going to react to that is allowing rest without guilt. Okay, whether that is you being hard on yourself, not allowing yourself to rest and feel guilty about it, or other people making you feel guilty because you need to rest. Not that you want to rest, but you need to rest. So notice how that feels in your body. The other one is responding instead of reacting. So just when you feel safe, you're not going to be reacting. You're not going to lash out or get on the defensive or anything like that. You're going to be able to take a moment to process it, to say, okay, is this a real threat or is just something that I'm perceiving as a threat, and then respond that way. That happens a lot with our children. Our children will trigger the daylights out of us and we will get reactive. And after we react, we feel so guilty about it. We may not admit it to our children, and we should, but so that would be one. But when I say this is responding instead of reacting, and not just for you, it is very important because it's self-leadership. You can only control how you react and how you respond, but also notice the people that are around you, if they're the ones reacting to your no, to your boundaries, to your permission to rest. If they are reacting instead of responding, then you also need to note that to see what kind of relationships you want to keep in your life, right? So I'm giving you all of this now to understand that self-leadership it essentially means that you are creating that inner safety first, right? In order for you to be safe in the outside world, you need to feel safe inside. So that's what self-leadership is most important, is creating that self-safety first. And again, I mentioned this, and you will hear me say this often, is if you cannot lead yourself, you cannot lead others. And this includes your children. As a parent, you are a leader. As a life partner, you are a leader as well. You're a co-leader. So you need to be able to coexist with this person. So remember that safety is what allows you to stay present. Okay. It's not what keeps you comfortable. Safety is what allows you to stay present with your children in the now. It's not anxiety where you're worried about what could possibly go wrong in the future. It's not depression where you're not feeling the motivation or that you're living in the past. It is to stay in the present. You need to feel safe. And you're the only one who can create this inner safety inside of you. So keep that in mind. And of course, this is something that you want to transfer over to your children. All right, for the last part of this episode now, I'm going to give you some practices that you could do to start working that muscle, to start creating that inner safety for yourself, and to start teaching your children how to do that as well. In order to practice, it really is all about learning your body's safety signals. Your body reacts, even though your subconscious mind reacts first, it's your body that's going to react to those signals of not feeling safe. So this is where you get the fear, the fright, flight, freeze, and fawn. It's your body's reaction to these danger signals that you're getting. Now, for adults, I'm going to go over practices that you can do for yourself as an adult, but also how you can teach that to your children afterwards as well. So for the adults, this is what I call notice before correct practice. All right. So notice before you correct. This is when I was telling you earlier, giving you examples of what safety looks like for adults. I was telling you to just, what do you feel in your body? This is what is very important, is for you to recognize how your body responds, because it's subconscious. You're not going to realize that your subconscious mind feels threatened. It's your body that's going to tell you. So you need to be aware. You need to be self-aware of how your body reacts. So the first thing you're going to do, there's 4 steps to do. The first one is to notice those physical cues. So important. So is it that you have a tight jaw? Is it that you have shallow breath? Do you have racing thoughts, right? Your mind is going a mile a minute. Or do you have this urge to control or fix everything? I know for me, there is that shortness of breath, very shallow breathing, but my shoulders go up. I often find myself, and I'm just chopping vegetables, and I'm just like, I'm wearing my shoulders as earrings. That's when I know that for some reason my mind is going somewhere where I'm thinking of about a million and one things. And then that signals my brain that I could be in danger right now. So it's I find myself now, some of the practice that I do when it comes to physical cues is when I notice my shoulders. Take a deep breath, just lower the shoulders down and remind myself that I am safe right now. I'm at home, nice and warm. I'm making food. So I'm not in danger right now. I can relax. It's important to train that muscle as well. So what are your physical cues? How does your body? Some people may just feel those butterflies in the stomach. They may feel nauseous. You may lose your appetite, or you may actually do the opposite, want to eat more. What does that look for you? Now, you also, the second step. So the first one is physical cues. The second step is naming it internally, right? So you don't have to have a full out conversation out loud with yourself. People will think you're crazy, but just notice. Again, it's a question of awareness. So now you notice that you're grinding your teeth. You notice you're barely breathing. So you just have to say, there's nothing complicated here. You just have to say, my body doesn't feel safe right now. That's all you have to say. When I'm wearing my shoulders as earrings, I'm telling myself, okay, something's up. My body doesn't feel safe right now. What's going on? You just keep reminding yourself, my body, and then I lower the shoulders. And this is why I tell myself, I am safe right now. It's okay. I can relax, right? So name it internally when you notice these signs. My body doesn't feel safe right now. What's going on? The third thing you're going to do is soften one thing, just one. Because if you're thinking too many things, you're putting your body back into, I'm not safe right now. There's too many things I have to do. So just one thing. In my case, I'm dropping the shoulders or taking a deep breath. So do that. You're going to soften when you were aware of how your body is reacting. You named it and say, okay, my body doesn't feel safe right now. And then just soften the one thing. So unclench your fists, drop the shoulders, take a very slow exhale. Then that's what I do. I breathe in because I have shallow breathing and then I release it as much as I can. That's what you're going to do. So you're going to find those physical cues. You're going to name it internally. My body doesn't feel safe. You're going to soften one thing. And the last thing you're going to do is you're going to delay an action by 30 seconds. You're going to slow things down. Now, it sounds very easy, but I have to tell you, especially if you're in survival mode, if your body or your subconscious mind detected a potential danger, even if it was an imaginary one, 30 seconds of no action, it will feel like the longest thing ever. But do delay your reaction by 30 seconds. So if it was an interaction with somebody, and I'll give you as parents, of course, when your children trigger you, your shoulders, your jaw clenched, everything is tight. You're gonna say, okay, I'm not in danger. And then soften and just wait those 30 seconds to give yourself time to calm down. So now that you are in a responsive mode as opposed to a reactive mode, this is what's going to save you from reacting in a certain way towards your partner, towards your coworker, towards your loved ones, towards your children, where now you're going to be responding. You can actually process what's happening and say, okay, it's not as bad as I thought it was. I've calmed down. Now I can address it. So delay it by 30 seconds. So again, those four things of notice before you correct practice is notice your physical cue. That's your first thing. Name it internally. You're going to soften one thing and then you're going to delay your action by 30 seconds to make sure that it is the right action to take. Now, you're going to notice that I'm repeating things a lot over and over, and this is as strategic as it is the way that your subconscious mind registers things. So you just have to work that muscle to keep repeating it until it becomes familiar and it becomes safe. So just keep that in mind that when you are triggered or when you're not able to focus on a new goal or a new habit that you're trying to develop, it's very important to realize and to keep reminding yourself that you are not broken, no matter what everybody else may be saying or what you're telling yourself internally. You are not broken. Regulation doesn't need fixing, it only needs to be noticed. Right? So you just notice that I'm dysregulated right now and I have control to make sure that I don't snap. I have control over this and just keep repeating yourself. So it doesn't need fixing, it just needs to be noticed. Now I'm going to go over how we teach our children this, right? We want to teach our children this as we're going along so that they can see, because again, they're watching us and they're also borrowing from our nervous system. They're borrowing from our regulation. This is why it's called co-regulation. So we're co-regulating before we're correcting. If there is a behavior, if there is a habit that they have that we need to change, we need to go over the co-regulation. You're going to set the example. They're going to piggyback off of you and they will borrow your nervous system for a little while until they can figure it out on their own. And they can only figure it out on their own if you teach them and if they can see you do it. So again, ego and pride aside, if our children are dysregulated in the long term, unless there's some underlying health issues, it's on us. Okay. So the first thing that we need, that the children really need help with, is to know their body cues as well. Again, the body's the first thing that speaks when you don't feel safe. So you're going to need to help them identify those body cues. You're going to have to talk to them and ask them when they are going through something And again, they need to, you can't do this when they're in a full-on breakdown or meltdown. The brain just shut down, so they're not going to be able to reason with you. And you try to explain to them, how does that feel in your body? You're just going to make it worse. So you're going to identify the cues. If you notice the symptoms before a meltdown. You ask them, okay, how does that feel? You're gonna have to use very simple language, all right? So the big scientific terms that we are hearing right now with self-regulation and all of that cannot necessarily work with children, especially if they're young because they don't have that vocabulary yet. They're not going to understand what you're talking about. So keep it very, very simple, and you're going to have to show them what that looks like. So you're going to say things like, your body looks tense right now. Or if they don't understand the term tense, you can say, your body looks tight right now. Your breathing is fast. These are the things they won't understand what shallow breathing is. You're going to have to show them and say, that's breathing fast. This is what's happening right now. You're going to have to help them identify those body cues. Uh, you need to give them the words for it. So keep that in mind. Very simple language, but describe to them what they're seeing. You're not putting words in their mouth, and you're not assuming that they feel angry. You say, you feel angry right now. You don't know that yet. You just say your body is tense. Your breathing is fast. Your face is red. Your fists are clenched. So that kind of thing. And then you can start working through to see if are they really angry? Are they embarrassed? Are they this? Some of those symptoms look very much the same in children. So don't put words in their mouth. Don't assume, because that's going to create even more friction later on. Another thing that I find working with children for 20 something years is kids are very visual and they're very creative. So if they don't have the words for it yet, if they can't follow you with the vocabulary, ask them to give it a color. Ask them to give them a shape. Ask them to give it a sound, so that when they're in a moment where it's a bit more intense, they may be a bit more reactive. It's not time to say, use your words. Yeah, it's aggravating. Imagine if your husband or your wife would say that to you when you are angry. It's like, use your words. All right, so we don't want that. It's okay. Do you remember what we talked about? What is the color you're seeing right now? If you can identify colors for different feelings or emotions, that can help you a lot to help the child. So what's the shape? If it's a new one, it's okay, let's give it a color. I feel it. Your shoulders are up. If they say their stomach hurts or their head hurts. I say, okay, so if that was a color, what would that look like? Give them a color, write it down if you need to, so you can remember. So if your child is yelling purple at one point, you know exactly how to help them and navigate that new emotion or that burst of that whatever it is that's triggering them. So that's just an extra note that it helped me a lot working with neurodivergent children as well, is go with all the senses. What does that look like? What does that smell like? What shape does that have? What sound would it make? If it was a cartoon, what sound would it make? It helps a lot. Another way to teach your children is to model your own process out loud. All right, now watch your vocabulary. Don't do this when you're in an anger outburst, or, you don't want to be screaming this out loud, but do talk to them on when you're going through something, go through the naming. Saying, I'm feeling this right now. My body feels like this right now. I feel my jaw is tight. My shoulders are up. I feel heat in my face, that kind of thing. You're naming it out loud so that your child can start noticing it too in them when they're feeling something, right? So you're gonna name it. You're gonna pause so you can tell your child, listen, I'm feeling a little angry right now. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm not feeling in control right now. Just give me a minute. I'm gonna take some deep breaths, and then I'll be able to talk to you. And that helps children a lot in learning to pause, to take those breaths that they need to. It's so powerful when you're able to tell this, say, I'm feeling frustrated right now. I feel it in my face. I feel this. You're naming it. And then say, I feel it in my body right now, and I need to pause for a minute for my body to relax, and then we'll talk about it. That'll take weeks to come back to it, but again, an emotion on average would take about 90 seconds to pass through your system, through your nervous system. Anything after 90 seconds, if you're still holding on to that emotion, then it's just a memory. It's a story that you've told yourself that you're holding on to. So 90 seconds is more than enough if you are emotionally strong to be able to say, okay, I'm letting that emotion through. And then once it's passed, I can address it. So this is something that you can tell your child as well. When I said earlier that wait 30 seconds before you take an action, that's a good start. But just remember, if it's just kind of lingering, 90 seconds is about how long it takes for an emotion to pass through for adults, not for children. So if 2 weeks later you're still feeling that same feeling, there's something else there that you need to address. So address it earlier. The sooner is better than later. Because if it becomes into a story that you're going to keep telling yourself, you will fall into that victim mentality. And you want to move away from that as fast as possible. So name it, pause, and return to safety. So when you're showing your child what it looks like when you return to safety, you could just again name it. Say, remember, you see how my shoulders were up earlier and my breathing was really fast. I took some time to relax and look, now my shoulders are down. I'm breathing a lot. You can breathe with them, teach them how to breathe through it. And now I'm ready to talk. So let's talk about what's really going on right now and go on. So you're showing them, you're modeling them. Again, don't forget it's co-regulation. At up to a certain age, children will follow your lead. So you need to be in control of that. Just a side note, it also helps with partners. I'm not saying that adults are children, but when we're dysregulated, we are behaving like children. So keep that in mind as well. If you see your partner getting riled up, if you calm yourself down, if you slow things down for yourself, it's going to help as well. Because if you're jumping on the bandwagon with them, then it's just not going to end well. So keep that in mind. Another side note, and I've mentioned that before, but it's very important to mention that again, none of this for your children is going to work if they're in a full meltdown, right? The brain is shut down at that moment. They cannot process the information that you're doing. You cannot teach a child anything when they're completely dysregulated. So you are going to have to wait until the storm passes, and then you'll be able to go back when they're calm and go through the process. So, okay, this is what happened. Give them the time and the space to express themselves. Again, don't forget, right? Safe, emotional. You can emotional safety. That's oh my goodness, I'm having a hard time with my words today. So just remember, emotional safety is important, right? And boundaries without fear is also very important for children. So just remember that they need to feel safe. Once they're calmed down, then you can go back and say, okay, this is what happened. How did that feel in your body? Let's name it. Okay, what can we do next time to not get there? What can we do before you lose control uh, to help? And then explain to them what is expected of them. It is important to set boundaries with your children. You just can't do it when they're in a full-blown meltdown. So again, just remember that children learn about regulating themselves. They learn about regulation by watching us. So we really need to be in check. And this is where the self-leadership comes from. You need to be able to lead yourself before you can lead your children. So you're going to need to set the example for that. So I'm going to leave you with this just to remember again that discipline is not the problem. Discipline grows out of safety, not force. That's the most important thing that you're going to need to remember. So it's when you do have a hard time following or getting into new habits or breaking old habits or achieving your goals, working on your personal growth, on your professional growth, what you consider a lack of discipline is not actually it. It's just a lack of safety. And you may not be in actual danger, but your body and your subconscious mind is registering whatever it is that you're going through, whatever changes you are making in your life, they're processing it as danger. It's not a discipline issue. It's just you don't feel safe at that moment. So let's ride that wave and you'll be okay. It's not force that's going to help you at that point. So remember that again, coaches, if they're forcing you through something that doesn't feel safe, doesn't feel right, you're getting all these physical cues that you don't feel safe, it's not going to go anywhere. And you're going to feel like you're failing. And then you get into the shame and the embarrassment and the guilt, which makes your subconscious mind feel even more unsafe. So you're just going through that loop really quickly. So in this leadership series or self-leadership series that I'm going through for season 4, awareness is the first act of leadership. When you are aware that your body is reacting to something, when you are aware that you are in reaction mode as opposed to responding, these are all basically what that first act of leadership is, being aware of what's happening. This will show up in your personal life. It will show up in your habits, in your boundaries, in your relationships. And of course, it will show up in your parenting as well. So this is across the board. If you are able to lead yourself through awareness, you're going to be able to transfer that over to every aspect of your life. This season, I'm going to continue to touch on these self-leadership points that help you grow. And these points are awareness, like I just mentioned. We're also talking about regulation, relationships, and embodiment. Now I'm talking about the self. So I'm not talking about the relationships outside of you. I'm talking about what's going on inside. So awareness of what's going on inside of you, regulation, how are we going to make sure that we are responding as opposed to reacting. That relationship is which part of you do you need to heal to make sure that you're not going through that again. And also the embodiment, how you show up now that you've addressed these issues. So if there are any particular points that you would like me to touch on throughout this year, please mention it in the comments. And then in the next episodes, I could touch on that to help you and how you can transfer that over into your relationships outside of you to create this well-balanced life for yourself. So just before I wrap up, I do invite you to reflect on this topic today, give you a little bit of homework, and just to focus on what does your body do when it doesn't feel safe. So start noticing that this week or this month and start noticing, how does my body react when I don't feel safe? Right. And then again, that could be a physical, emotional, psychological, whatever it is. Just how does your body react? Just to be aware of that will help you greatly in realizing how your subconscious is working against you sometimes. So that's what I would like for you to reflect on this month. And I want you to stay tuned for next month. I will be talking about this one habit that will change your parenting, that will change your leadership, and it will change your entire life. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to whichever channel you're listening or watching from. And don't forget to go check out the previous seasons to see if there's anything there that can help you. And until next time, stay safe, stay awesome, and we'll talk soon.